Studies have shown that when we practice acts of kindness, it releases endorphins, which is the brain's natural painkillers. It increases our overall levels of oxytocin, which helps us feel connected to other people. So kindness not only makes us feel good, but it reduces things like stress, anxiety, and even our physical pain. It's like a natural medicine that's available to every single one of us. So as we practice kindness, not only are we helping ourselves by producing all of those chemicals, those feel-good chemicals in our brains and reducing our stress, our anxiety, our pain. Think about the holistic impact that it's having in your life. But research also shows that it has a huge ripple effect to the people who are around us. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Permission to Love podcast. I'm your host, Jerry Henderson, and as always, I'm so grateful that you're here. This podcast is about having a healthier relationship with yourself, and as a result, having healthier relationships with other people, and having a healthier relationship with life itself. So I'm glad you're here, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. Today, we're going to continue our series on happiness. We've been talking about the things that contribute to our happiness, and as a very quick review, we've talked about how 50% of our happiness is because of our genetics, that 10% of our happiness is due to our circumstances, and the other 40% of our happiness is due to the daily activities or the habits that we have in our life. And many of you have asked me to go deeper into those activities that make up that 40%. Because remember, that 40%, those activities can help mitigate the 50%, okay, the genetic set point. It's just like taking cholesterol medication if you're born with a high cholesterol due to your genetics. And the activities that make up that 40% can also help us reframe that 10% or those circumstances. And so that 40%, even though it's 40%, has a massive impact on the other 60%. Now, if you remember, last week we talked about the impact of gratitude on our overall happiness. And today we're going to talk about kindness, how acts of kindness can have a huge impact on our overall well-being and our overall happiness. There's a great proverb that says, true happiness is found in making others happy. Now, I'm sure for most of us, we've done lots of acts of kindness for other people, and we've had those acts of kindness done for us, and we know how good that makes us feel in the moment. But did you know that the research is clear that integrating acts of kindness into your life, intentionally integrating those into your life, has a huge impact on lifting your overall happiness? So in this episode, we're going to take a quick look at some of the research. We're going to talk about what those acts of kindness can do, and we're going to actually talk about how to integrate them in a sustainable way into our lives. So let's start with talking about a little bit of the research. There's been a lot of research that's shown a direct link on how acts of kindness can lift our overall happiness. The Journal of Emotions found that there is a direct link between overall well-being and happiness and the practice of acts of kindness. It showed that those who practice acts of kindness on a regular basis self-report to be more happier than those who don't practice those acts of kindness. Sonia Lubomirsky's work in this space about the how of happiness clearly shows the association of acts of kindness on happiness. Other studies have shown that when we practice acts of kindness, it releases endorphins, which is the brain's natural painkillers. It increases our overall levels of oxytocin, which helps us feel connected to other people. So kindness not only makes us feel good, but it reduces things like stress, anxiety, and even our physical pain. It's like a natural medicine that's available to every single one of us. So as we practice kindness, not only are we helping ourselves by producing all of those chemicals, those feel-good chemicals in our brains and reducing our stress, our anxiety, our pain. Think about the holistic impact that it's having in your life. But research also shows that it has a huge ripple effect to the people who are around us. When they see us being kind, they're more likely to practice acts of kindness. Research published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences showed that kindness is indeed contagious. The research shows that it has a ripple effect. Think about it. When you drive through a Starbucks or a coffee shop and you find out that somebody in front of you paid for your coffee, there's a sense of gratitude that happens. I remember the first time it happened for me, I was a little shocked and I was very grateful. And what was the next thing that I wanted to do? I wanted to pay for the person behind me. And so somebody else's act of kindness motivated me to pay for somebody behind me, and so I got a double benefit. I got the benefit of kindness being expressed to me, then I got the benefit of expressing kindness to somebody else. We can actually get in a kindness loop if we learn how to practice intentional kindness to others and then allow that to motivate them to practice kindness to other people. What a beautiful way for us all to live, and no wonder it has a huge impact on our overall happiness. I'm sure most of us have heard about the Pay It Forward movement, but did you know that that movement was started in the year 2000 by a small act of kindness? Catherine Ryan Hyde was driving home one night and her car broke down on the side of the road. After a bit of time, a stranger stopped by, a young man, and he got out of the car and he fixed her car for her without asking for anything in return. Now, she was pretty insistent that she wanted to pay him for helping her and for fixing her car. But his response was, pass it on. Pass it on to somebody else. And that act of kindness towards Catherine in that moment motivated her so much that it inspired her to do other acts of kindness for other people. And ultimately, it would lead her to write the book, Pay It Forward. And the book tells about a story of a young boy who comes up with the idea to do 3 acts of kindness towards other people, and as payment for those acts of kindness, to encourage them to pay it forward. And it's amazing when you think about one act of kindness had the power to start a movement. So you never know what your act of kindness is going to do for somebody else. You never know what their act of kindness is going to do for you. But we do know, and the research is clear, that it's at least going to make all of us happier. And I love what Mark Twain, the great American author, humorist, says about kindness. He says that kindness is the language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. You know kindness when you see it, you feel it, it does something to you, and it motivates you to do kind acts for other people. I know for me, it just makes me want to be a better human being. And being a better human being is absolutely linked to our overall eudaimonic well-being, and eudaimonic well-being being that part of us which finds well-being or happiness in a life well lived, which contributes to our overall well-being and increases our happiness. Now let's move on to the next point, and you know that I would be remiss if I did not talk about practicing self-kindness or practicing self-compassion as a part of what would increase our overall well-being, increase our happiness as a part of our kindness activities. And I want to take a moment to point out that while kindness towards other people is absolutely linked to our overall happiness, so is the acts of kindness that we do towards ourselves. When we are kind to ourselves, we create a foundation of self-worth, resilience, awareness of who we are, and that leads us to living a better life, leading a more happy life, and then from that place, we're able to practice even more acts of kindness to other people. Research by Dr. Kristen Neff shows clearly that self-compassion, self-kindness is linked to lower levels of anxiety, depression, and an increase in overall life satisfaction. You know, in the work that I do with my clients, we'll often come to this moment in the coaching process, which is about their relationship with themselves. How are they treating themselves? And how is that treatment towards themselves impacting their entire life, their relationships, their career, their overall well-being, their happiness, their self-confidence, all of that stuff that's showing up in their life that they're trying to get coaching for, inevitably come back to how are you treating yourself? How's your relationship with yourself? Are you being kind to yourself? Are you being compassionate to yourself? How's that inner dialogue going towards yourself? And as we start doing work on that relationship with ourselves and we begin to heal that, all of the other areas in our lives that we want, they begin to accelerate. We begin to accelerate towards them because we're in a healthier space. Our motivations are more healthy. Our relationships get more healthy. How we show up at work and letting go of the imposter syndrome and all of the low self-confidence, all of that begins to get healed as we begin to address our relationship with ourselves. And one of the key parts of that is learning how to be kind to yourself, to show compassion towards yourself. And for me as a coach, when I see a person begin to improve their relationship with themselves, I know that they're on the path to achieve the things they want and towards the success that they want. Because a healthier relationship with yourself improves your mental health, your emotional health, your relational health, your work health. As I talked about before, it has such a ripple effect in every area of your life. And the reason I know that they're going to have a better chance at fulfilling all the things that they want as they practice self-compassion and self-kindness is because it's an essential part of the growth mindset. It changes and reframes the way that they look at everything in their life when they change the way that they look at themselves. So now let's move on and let's talk about some practical tips about how you can integrate acts of kindness into your life and as a result, increase your overall happiness. Now, the first thing is to practice some gratitude when you start your day. And if you're struggling to figure out how to practice gratitude, you can actually go listen to the episode that I did before this one on how gratitude impacts your overall happiness. Now, why is it important to practice gratitude as a part of integrating acts of kindness into our lives? Well, research published in the Journal of Positive Psychology found that practicing gratitude increases our overall sense of well-being and fosters pro-social behavior, including acts of kindness. Now, the other thing that practicing gratitude can do is it can shift your perspective away from lack, what you don't have, and it can put your attention on what you do have because you're being grateful for what you have and you're shifting your energy from a space of lack, what I don't have, to abundance, what I do have. And when we come from a place of abundance and we're not in a state of lack, we become more generous. And one of the things that we do in our generosity is acts of kindness towards other people. So if you're walking around with the mindset of, why should I be kind to other people? They're not kind to me. That is coming from a place of lack, a lack of kindness being shown to you. And if you want kindness in your life, in your environment, the best place to start is by practicing acts of kindness towards other people. And when you start to practice kindness, kindness is going to start showing up in your life as well. Now, the second thing that we can do to integrate kindness into our lives is to begin to practice random acts of kindness. And I want to focus a little bit on that word random, but random acts of kindness is simply doing things for others randomly without an expectation of receiving anything in return and doing it without any reason for doing the behavior other than just wanting to be kind or wanting to express kindness towards other people. Research in the Journal of Social Psychology showed that those who practiced random acts of kindness over a 10-day period self-reported a greater sense of well-being and happiness over those who didn't practice random acts of kindness. So the good news is it doesn't have to be anything huge to get the benefits. You can simply buy a cup of coffee for somebody, you can compliment a coworker, or leave a kind note for somebody. But the key is to do it in a way that's random, that's not repaying somebody for something and not expecting anything in return. Now, earlier I said I was going to focus in on that word random a little bit. So what I want to point out is that it's good to practice those things in a random way for yourself as well. Because what we don't want to do is turn this into a chore, right? For many of us as high achievers or planners, and for those of us who struggle with perfectionism, we might hear something like this and we start to think, okay, I'm going to schedule it. I'm going to put it on my calendar every day. And when I don't do it, I might beat myself up. I might judge myself for it. And we turn it into a chore versus something that can be very life-giving. So I want to encourage you, don't turn this into a chore. Keep it in the life-giving space. And one of the ways that you can do that is make it random for yourself. Now you might be thinking, well, if I don't schedule it, I might forget it, so I need to put these reminders. Well, that's all okay. We can put those reminders, and yes, we can think about something that we want to do for somebody in advance. That's all good, but try to make it spontaneous. Don't overplan it. Do it in a way that it feels somewhat random for you as well. Or maybe you're doing it once a week instead of every single day. Or maybe you do kick it off by starting it every day for 10 days and see what happens. And then after that 10 days is done, you can then move it into more of a natural flow into your life. But there is research on this point that if you turn it into a chore, you're going to lessen the benefits of it. We want to keep it in the happy place. We want to keep it in the spontaneous place, the random place where we're doing it in our soul, in our heart, or whatever word that you want to use that is expressing it in a way that keeps it fresh for us. Now, some other quick tips on how to practice acts of kindness is that you can volunteer. Research from the University of Exeter's medical school shows that volunteering reduces depression, increases well-being, and get this, and shows a 22% reduction in the risk of dying. Who knew that volunteering could not only make you happy, but it could cause you to live longer as well? Now, another tip is that acts of kindness don't always have to be financial acts of kindness. We just talked about volunteering, but it can also be about spending time with people. It is an act of kindness to be able to be fully present with somebody, to listen actively, to just be with somebody who's struggling. Those are all acts of kindness. And those acts of kindness nourish our connections with other people. And guess what? A study published in the Journal of Happiness shows that those who have stronger social connections are happier and have a greater sense of well-being. And practicing acts of kindness towards other people is directly linked to our overall social connection and our overall social well-being. So I think, as you can see, practicing kindness, being a kind person, doing all of these things where we're kind to other people and kind to ourselves isn't just about doing nice things. It is essential for our overall mental and emotional well-being. The research is so clear on this that kindness is a powerful tool that can transform the lives of others and can transform our own lives. So I want to encourage you on something. When you're done listening to this podcast, don't simply tuck it away as a nice podcast, something that was really helpful for you to learn about. So I want you to be intentional to do two things today. The first is identify one way that you could be kinder to yourself. The second is to perform one act of kindness to somebody else. Now, if you're listening to this podcast right before you go to bed and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I don't have time to do an act of kindness for somebody else, you do. You could take a moment and you could send a text to somebody and let them know how much you appreciate them. Or if it's too late to send that text, you can take a moment and write something in your phone that you'll send first thing in the morning to that person. Or maybe you could just take a quick moment and write out a little handwritten note that you could put in the kitchen or someplace in the house that when people get up in the morning, they could see that note from you and they could be encouraged and feel that sense of being loved by you and appreciated by you. That is an act of kindness as well. Or finally, you could just go online real quick and buy a little something to be shipped to somebody as an act of kindness to them. So whatever it is, take a moment to commit to being kind to yourself today, something that you're going to do, and then something that you're going to do to express kindness to somebody else. Well, thank you for joining another episode of the Permission to Love podcast. I'm always so grateful that you take time out of your busy day to tune in. And I want to say, way to go for developing yourself and investing in yourself by listening to this podcast. Now, if you need more resources to help you on your journey, you can check out my website at jerryhenderson.org. I have a lot of resources there. You'll learn more about my coaching program. There's some free downloads that I have there for you to help you on your journey. And you can also sign up for a newsletter that'll keep you updated on new resources as they're coming out. I also want to take a moment to ask you a favor. If you've not yet had a chance to subscribe or to follow this podcast, please take a moment to do that, as well as turn on those reminders, because that's going to keep you updated on when new episodes come out. Now, it would also mean a lot to me if you'd take a moment to rate and review the podcast. The more ratings and reviews we get, the more exposure the podcast gets, and the more likely people are able to discover it and get the help that they need on their journey. And finally, I want to remind you that your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship that you have. So be kind to yourself and remember, you are worthy of your own love.